This is my resubmission for DES105. This is my game Slipspace. It's an asteroid-like game where you have to survive in space and avoiding asteroids that spawn in. The player can exit from the left or right hand side of the screen and reappear on the opposite side. So for example, if the player was to move along to the right, they would reappear there. The goal of the game is to survive for as long as you can, rack up a score. It's every 5 seconds, the player will get 5 score. Once the player dies, you can then return back to the main menu and either leave the game, exit it, or begin the game again. So let's get into the code of the game. First we'll start off with the pause script. Now the pause script is pretty simple. I've linked the escape key to initiate the pause function. So what happens whenever the escape key is pressed, the game is then toggled to pause. So whenever the game is toggled to pause, the timescale is then equal to 0. If the timescale is equal to 1, it won't run this script. But if it is equal to 0, it will run this script and classify the game as paused. This also works with the def, so whenever the player dies, it is sort of run this script to ensure that the right stuff appears whenever the time is equal to 0. This here is the random spawn location for the meteorite, which is the end of the game. It's set up to allow more enemies essentially to be used, so different prefabs can be used, but for my game I've just used the one prefab. So this is the actual object spawn, and this is the spawn rate of the object, so every 2 seconds the object, a new meteorite / enemy should spawn, but this is made public so that I could alter it during testing to find the best suit for the game. Now what happens here is, whenever the next spawn time is reached, which is set to 0, but it is essentially the spawn rate, whenever the spawn rate, the time, runtime of the game is then, whenever the runtime of the game is greater than the next spawn, then it will then pick from a random range of objects what to spawn. Just because of my game I've just got the one prefab, but you could have multiple and this would pick between them. So what's happening here is the game's actually spawning in. This is where it actually spawns in the objects. For me I only have the one case, so this is just the meteorite, but if I was to then add another enemy into the game, I could easily just retype out similar code to this, and the game would consistently switch between them. It would be random, so it could spawn the same enemy twice, or it could spawn different enemies back to back. This essentially here is making the next spawn equal to the spawn rate that we set, so it's detecting when the next spawn should be. This is the retry script. This is attached to the retry button in the game. So what happens whenever the player clicks the retry button or the return button on the def/pause menu, then it will load the main menu and it will also reset the player's health. This was done because during scripting, during my while I was coding, the player wouldn't respawn, reload into the scene with full health, and they would stay in the dead state. So instead I've switched it so that the player will come back with full health and they will appear. This here is to hide the actual panel, so this keeps the def/pause panel hidden while there's gameplay, and whenever the return button is in press, as soon as it's pressed it will hide the panel. This is the health script. This is the complicated one, as it determines the player's health and how many hearts will appear according to the player's health. So this line if statement here is then basically making it so that the player can never have more health than their set max health. So if the health player is greater than max health, then it's resetting it so that it is equal to the max health. This is basically helping to run the def state of the player. So whenever the player dies, the die script is run and the time scale is set to 0. So down here we have the health, so the player's health is always equal to the number of hearts that is on their screen. So which we'll see down here. So whenever the player loses like a heart, then their health is then equal to the amount of hearts that they actually have. So if they the game there's 4 hearts. So if the player takes a hit from the asteroid, they lose 1 health, and then that means they only have 3 hearts. So then their health is then equal to the number of hearts on the screen, which is 3 hearts. This is essentially preventing the empty heart sprite from appearing whenever the player has health in that slot. So if it was the 4th slot, then you had 4 hearts, then there would be no empty heart sprite. If the player has no health, then the empty heart sprite will appear, so it's just doing the opposite. So whenever the player doesn't have health in that section, if they have free health, max health of 3, then and 4 hearts on the screen, then this is making it so that the 4th heart becomes empty. This here is then displaying the correct amount of hearts according to the player's health. So in the case of the game is 4, so whatever so it would change if it was set to 5, then the player would have 5 hearts on the screen. This is the die function, so this is also setting the timescale to 0. This was done twice because during gameplay I found that it was for some reason not properly setting the timescale down to equal to 0. So here I've also made it so that the game freezes when the player dies. I don't know why I was doing that, but after doing that up here and also keeping the die function in, it seemed to have stopped the issue. This here's making it so whenever the player collides with an object that is tagged enemy, then they're going to lose 1 health, and then that would also change whatever their hearts are. This here is the scoring system, so the timer is basically set to 0, and whenever it gets greater to 5 seconds, the score's then upped by 5. This switches this on the counter at the top left of the screen, so each time the player lives 5 seconds, they're getting 5 more score added, so go from 5 to 10 to 15. Then this is resetting the timer back to 0, so that it can calculate it to everything that's greater than 5. If this wasn't done, then the player would just consistently keep getting score. This is the enemy script. So this is the max speed at which the enemy can move, which is 5, and the delay of the actual lifetime of the enemy. So this would be 1 second. Now what's happening here, this is actually calculating how the enemy moves. So it's picking a random spot on the x-axis and a random spot on the y-axis, and then it is returning this new value that it found from these previous 2, and then making it so that the object will then move towards that the new coordinates. This is making it so that if the random object, if the object is tagged with enemy, then it's getting its rigid body, so it's collider. It's rigid body, and then it is then basically making it so that they bounce against other solid objects if it is tagged with enemy. And then it's also setting it off in a different direction, so we'll hit into the enemy, and so that basically the meteorites can collide with each other. This is consistently running while the game is playing, and it is basically destroying the meteorite when the timer is up. This is done to prevent overuse of memory. When we want the enemies to disappear, they should disappear so that the player can actually move around the screen without being cluttered with enemies, making the game impossible. And this is making it so that if the player collides with a meteorite, then it is then destroying the meteorite the player collided with. This here is the screen re-enter, so this is making it so when the player exits from the left screen, they respawn at the right hand side of the screen, in the same position that they left in. So what we have here is the starting bit, so this is getting the player's location within the world space of the game. This includes when the player is out of the view of the camera, so whenever the player is not within the view of the actual main camera, we're still tracking their location. This is done because we need to see when the player is actually exiting the camera, otherwise we wouldn't be able to make them respawn. So this is setting whatever the player's location that they exited the screen at on the left. So for example on the left this would find us the exact location the player left the screen at on the left hand side, and this is doing the same on the right. So if it left and if the player exited on the right hand side for the middle, they would then reappear on the left, the same coordinates on the left side of the screen. And this is actually transporting the player, so whenever the player is less than the constraint that they exited the screen in, so whenever they're actually away from the exact moment they left the main camera's view, we're then taking that, removing the player from, giving the player some leeway so they can get only a certain bit off the screen, otherwise they would disappear before they left the screen. So up here it's set to 1, so it's 1 extra onto the coordinates that they left at. So then the player's leaving the screen, it's then transforming their position to the same location on the right hand side and spawn them just outside of the main camera's view so that they can then float in back into the camera's view. And this is doing the same for the right hand side. So wherever the player exited on the right, they're going to then appear at the same location on the left. This is the player movement, so this is just essentially giving the player movement. It's pretty basic. What we've got here is so that we're getting the actual rigid body, which is what Unity uses to allow the player to move. So it's taking its actual rigid body slash like its collider essentially, and allowing the player to move along different axes. So what we've got here is if the player's health is greater to 1, then this is just, a lot of stuff is also in the player movement script. So it's just essentially that it should just really be a player script. So if the health of the player is greater than 1, then the def panel's not appearing, and if the timescale's set to 0, then the def pan is appearing, which is done in the other script, so that when the player dies and the timescale is equal to 0, then this def panel is going to appear. This here is actually reading the player's location as they move along the x-axis, and this is reading the player as they move along the y-axis. We're then allowing the player to, their new movement is equal to whatever the their coordinates, so it's consistently allowing them to keep moving along the different axes. This is also the speed of the player, so we're adding force to the player, we're allowing them to move to their rigid body. We're timesing whatever their movement is here by the speed we've set as well. So we're going to, it would multiply whatever their movement is, multiplied by 5 so that they're traversing the screen a lot faster. This was made public at the top as well, to allow me to change it while I'm testing. This here is actually preventing the player from accelerating. So an issue I discovered while I first wrote out this script was that the player would accelerate and consistently, because it's consistently timesing their movement by speed, so it just keeps timesing it, and the player would become really fast. So to prevent that from happening, I wrote out this here, and it is making it so that the player can only hit a max of 10 in acceleration, and minus 10 if they're going different on the different axis. They're not going to go any faster than 10 pixels, essentially. This is the menu buttons. So this basically runs the main menu. We have start game, so whenever the start game button is clicked, it's going to load the main game, and it's going to make the timescale equal to 1, so that it is then run. And this is simple as well. Whenever the quit game button is selected, the game is then exiting and it's closing the application over. That is it for my resubmission game, Slipspace. Thank you for listening.